So this period, post-1807, up to the abolition of slavery in the colonies, has come to be termed by some medical historians as the period of pronatalism in slave societies, since slaveholders become more concerned than ever with ensuring that enslaved women produced plentiful offspring. And it is at this time that the medical field of gynecology really starts to take shape, developing primarily through non-consensual experimentation on the bodies of enslaved women. So Dr. James Marion Sims is a key figure in all of this. He's often termed the father of American gynecology and is credited with the development of a number of surgical techniques and instruments, including the speculum, which, is still in use today and many of you may be familiar with. So it's a tool that's inserted into the vagina and opens up to separate the vaginal walls. We use it today in pap smears to check for things like cervical cancer, for example, right? And he is also credited with the development of surgical techniques to repair something called vesicovaginal fistulas, which is a condition usually resulting from childbirth that was essentially the tearing of the internal walls of the vagina, often into the bladder or anal passage, resulting in issues with incontinence as well as extreme pain. Sims developed all of these tools and techniques for treating vesicovaginal fistulas using the bodies of 12 enslaved Black women and girls who he leased from their owners in Montgomery, Alabama for a period of 5 years in 1845. Sims conducted a number of surgical experiments on each of these women and girls, and while some historians have defended Sims's experiments as, the best option that was available to them at the time, given that there was no consistently effective treatment for fistulas in 1845, I think the fact that Sims only started to use these techniques on his wealthy white patients some 10 years later, once these kind of proof of concept surgeries had been worked out on enslaved Black bodies, demonstrates that he did not really have their best interests at heart. Even further, Sims explicitly chose not to use anesthesia in any of these experiments because he bought into this racist notion that Black women, being allegedly especially strong, had a higher threshold for pain than white women. So to quote one of Sims's contemporaries, Dr. Charles White, and there's a racial slur here that I'm going to blank out, but I'm going to mention that it's there so that you know what kind of context these words were originally used in. But yeah, Dr. White says they bear surgical operations much better than white people, and what would be the cause of insufferable pain to a white man, would almost disregard. My point here is essentially that people often have the tendency, when they're trying to excuse stereotypes of some kind, to say things like, it's actually a positive stereotype because, being portrayed as a strong woman is a good thing, etc. And what I'm trying to show here is that, even where a stereotype has an apparently positive overtone, its application and its origins can be extremely negative. And you could try to argue, well, okay, so it comes from this place and it was used in this way at that time, but it has a different meaning today and it's not as harmful in its modern day applications. And to some extent, you might have a point. This trope around Black women specifically being very physically strong has evolved substantially since the period of slavery. Nowadays, it's not so much that Black women are thought to have what historian Deirdre Cooper Owens has called medical superbodies. It's more that they are thought to possess a specific and unique form of emotional resilience. In particular, Black women are often portrayed as being strong in the face of oppression.